And now you go, Reb Shmuel. Welcome back to our Tefillah Chabura. I believe this is number 5, and this is very exciting. Also, that we're getting to recap. It's an aspect of tshuva, and you get to do an extra one. We missed the class when I got sick with Corona, and now gevalt, like the mom was able to reconnect and get this extra weekend. So that's really huge. So today we've been exploring all these different forms of tefillah, right? We explored pilul and tefillah, and we explored bitzor and shava and sa'aka and na'aka. And today we're gonna do 2. That's my plan. We're gonna do this one right over my head, which is Amida, and then the one over here is Pegiah. Okay, so we're gonna get into these two forms of prayer called Amida and Pegiah. What is Amida and what is Pegiah? So for starters, we're going to jump straight into Amida, right? Amida, we've had this pasuk before. Remember, we had it two classes ago, where we had this pasuk of Vayamod Pinchas Vayipalel Vateyatzar Magefa. That Pinchas stood up and he did pilul and he stopped the Magefa. So we mentioned back then that that Chazal taught us that it could just mean, the simple translation of the pasuk is just that he stood up, and by Yipal he made a judgment that he's allowed to kill Cosby and Zimri, and that stopped the Magefa. But then Chazal say, wait, this pasuk also says something else. It says that Pinchas stood up in prayer, Vayipalal, and he prayed, Vatiyatzar Magefa, and the Magefa stopped. So if we explain the word Vayipalal, you got to get your lumdish thumbs out, right? If you're going to explain that Vayipalel is talking about that he made a judgment, so that's why he stood up. He stood up because nobody else was standing up in the situation. He stood up, excuse me. He stood up and he made a judgment call that he's allowed to kill them. And if you're going to say that Vayipalel is referring to prayer, then I think that we have to say that Vayamod is also an element of prayer. And that's really where our journey for today begins. That there's an element of prayer called Amida. Now, many people have opened the siddur and they see very clearly, right, that when you that there's a part of davening called Shemona Esrei, right, when we all stand. And another name for the Shemona Esrei, for the 18 brachos that we do, which is like the pinnacle of davening, we also call it the Amida. The Amida, because you're supposed to stand during this experience, during this type of prayer. And so so this already we see, there's something unique about Amida. When we finish this 8-week course, you're going to look back at me, you're going to say, Yehuda, are each one of these things completely separate, or are they all elements of one experience? And the truth is, I would say, I don't know. Experiment and experience. You tell me. Is it all a shared experience, or is it all different types? I think it's different types. However, there are many elements that we are going to see are going to go one into the next, that we're going to be exploring these different aspects. And definitely you're going to do Amida maybe when you're also doing Shava. You know what I mean? Like while you're screaming to God, you might also do it in the form of Amida. However, within Amida, it's its own world. And that's really, we're going to try to understand the world of what it means to be standing, to be omeid. So another pasuk that we have, which is an interesting pasuk, it's a pasuk in Bereshis, and it says this is by the story of Avram and Sodom and Lot, right? And so Avram, the parsha started off that Avram was sitting and God's talking to him, and then these angels come, and then they're going to destroy the city of Sodom. And it says that Vayashkem Avram Baboker, Avram got up the next morning, El Hamakom Asher Omad Sham Es Pnei Hashem, to the place, to the space that he stood there by the face of God, meaning having a relationship with Hashem. Now here it gets interesting, because there's a number of very interesting points that we could bring out over here. One of them is that Avram is related with this unique type of prayer called Amida, right? Chazal actually use this pasuk, right? And they say um, from where do we know? It says Avram Avinu was the one who instituted the prayer of Shachris. And where do we know this from? Because it says Vayashkem Avram Baboker, and Avram got up in the morning. How do we know that this is talking about prayer? So the pasuk says, because it says Asher Amad Sham, and Amad means to stand and to pray. How do we know that it means pray? From the pasuk that we just had before, right? The pasuk of Vayamod Pinchas Vayipalo, that tells us that this is a form of prayer. But what's also interesting is that this form of prayer is a unique and special type of prayer. When do we stand in front of someone? Like, who do you talk to that you should be standing in front of? And the truth is that we stand in front of someone that we need to have fear and awe from. For example, if you're talking to your teacher, right? So you would stand up, right? We know that for Kibbud Ava'im, you stand up when a parent enters the room. It denotes a certain type of respect, but not just a respect that comes from love or intimacy. It comes from a fear and an awe. And the Gemara actually says that Avram Avinu was the first one that recognized Hashem as Adon. He was the first one that recognized Hashem as master of the whole world. Whereas up until that point, people understood that they related to God as creator. They related to God as even the one who's still running the world, etc. But the fact that he's master, that he's involved with the world, that my experience is directly influenced by Hashem, gevalt. That was Avram. And the truth is, there is a medrash that Adam Arishan also called Hashem Adon. And why, if that's the case, then why is Avram called Adon? Why is Avram called the first one to call him Adon? It's a good question, and there's beautiful, beautiful Torahs on it, but we're going to leave that for now. But the first step that we can see is that Avram Avinu is the one who established the Shachris, and he talks about standing in front of God with a certain level of awe and fear. Now, there's another very interesting thing, which is seemingly a little bit on the side, but I felt that it was important to bring it in. The Mabit, he has a cool sefer. It's called you can see this, the Bais Elokim. And in the sefer Bais Elokim, it's an amazing sefer. He was like a late Rishon, and his sefer is mind-blowing. He goes through three core elements in the sefer. One is he talks about Tefillah. It's called the Shara Tefillah, and then he has the Shara HaTshuva, which he goes through all the different aspects of Tshuva, and then he has the Shara Yisodot, like the core fundamentals of Judaism. I highly recommend the sefer. Great sefer. He says in the Shara Tefillah that from this where it says that Avram went back to the place that he stood before. This idea of standing in a makom, right? And this is important because we're going to get back to this all the way at the end of our Chabura. But standing in a space, creating a space, but not just a space, creating a certain experience that I'm going to stand in fear and in awe, just doing that is already so powerful that sometimes you don't even need to daven. He said, because we see over here that it doesn't say that he davened. It just says that he went and stood there. And from the fact that the Torah chose to express that his prayer was just one of him going back there and just standing there, was enough to show that just by standing in a makom tefillah, like if you practice davening and you stand up and you stand in front of Hashem in a place that you stood before, that is enough to be poel yeshuot. You can already affect tremendous things just by standing with fear, with awe in the place that you stand. And this is why we should have a makom kavua. But as we're going to see, a makom doesn't necessarily mean that it's always the same place, even though that is definitely the meaning of makom kavua. But it's also the same practice. You put on a jacket, or you put on a gartel, or whatever your minhag is, or you button your shirt, or you close your shirt, or you stand properly, you tuck yourself in, whatever it is that you're doing, what Amida means, standing in front of Hashem and doing it in a proper way, it shows that we're standing with a certain level of yirat shamayim, of wow, that's the first aspect that we can say about Amida. Another interesting point is that the kohanim, right? The kohanim that that they did the Avodah in the Bais HaMikdash, the Pesukim refer to them that they were oimdim umesharsim. They were standing and serving in the Bais HaMikdash. There's another pasuk, la'amod l'shares, that for those that stand to serve. And we know, right, all the way from the beginning, that the what does the Torah call prayer? It calls avodah, right? Ezehu avodah shebelev. What is the avodah of the heart? What is the avodah of the heart that that we do? So obviously, simply avodah is avodah in the Bais HaMikdash, bringing the karbanos, doing the avodah of the kohanim. But then we also said avodah is referring to prayer. So we see that there's an intimate connection between the avodah of in the Bais HaMikdash to the avodah of of davening. And the truth is that we learn countless halachos of tefillah, what type of clothes you could wear, how you should stand. I mean, there's a gufnaki, having a clean body. There's countless halachos that we learn from the kohanim, that because the kohanim had to serve Hashem in their way, so too when we, do our worshiping, our prayer service, our avodah shabalev, it also has to be done in this way. And one of those things is called Amida. It's got to be done standing. No one is allowed to stand in the Bais HaMikdash except for a king from the tribe of King David, right? David HaMelech. But otherwise, nobody else is allowed to sit. Everybody has to stand. And that also, once again, we see that there's a type of worshiping called standing. Now, there's another very interesting point about standing, and then hopefully I'm going to bring them all together to talk about what the experience of standing is. There's an expressive difference between man and beast. In my other chaburas, we talk a lot about the difference between man and beast, and we get into the idea of the different level of consciousness between man and beast, and the fact that man has the ability to control language, right? And we can think about our own thoughts. We can be self-aware. We can speak. We can have internal dialogue, external dialogue. Man can control fire, right? Which is very expressive of the ability to control the experience that we're in. But there's another very basic difference, and that's the difference between man and beast, right? Man can stand upright while animals walk on all fours. Now, what is the idea of this, right? It's more than just the fact that animals walk on all fours, right? Birds walk on too, but we would still call them, they're still part of the animal kingdom. So there's a few interesting points about this. The first one is that animals, and this is in the Sifrei Pnimius, they say that animals are facing the ground. They're walking on all fours and they're facing the ground because the ground is their shoresh. They don't have anything up in Shemayim. They're not part of a higher experience. They live in the reality that they're placed, meaning they're here. If you put them into an environment, that is their environment that they live in. There's nothing more. However, Adam, humans, we stand. The expression of standing is that we also face our source, that we are carved out, so to speak, from underneath the kisei hakavod. Now, this is huge. If you were in a situation and you were a lion, so the way that you would deal with this situation is by looking at your environment and saying, what am I going to use in my environment to get myself out of this? But if you're a human, you face upwards and you look up to the sky and you say, I might be in a tough situation down here, but I know that there's Hashem who runs the world. I understand that there's a higher power that's controlling my destiny, who's involved in my moments, and that I need to face up that way. However, as humans, we have the ability to sometimes face the ground just like an animal. And then we can allow the ground to overwhelm us. And then the physicality, and we can allow ourselves to become animals and we can become beasts. However, we have the ability to choose to look up. Another thing about standing as man and not beast is that the angels are also omdim umasharsim, right? The angels are known that they're always in a state of Amida. They're always standing. Now, they don't have the ability to not choose to serve God. We have the ability to. And so therefore, when we're davening, we choose to stand. We say, Hashem, look at me. I am choosing to be in your service. I'm choosing to be yours. I want to be yours. I want to be your guy. I want to be in your service. I want to choose to worship you, Hashem. And that's why I'm going to choose to stand. I'm going to choose to stand up on my 2 feet. I'm going to put my feet together, just like the angels that stand, ragleihem regel yeshara. Their feet are on a single post. They stand on one leg. They don't bend. They don't sit down, because that's what angels are. But when we choose to get ourselves into a state of service of Hashem, of Avodah, or like the Bais HaMikdash, like the kohanim, but when we're doing it through Tefillah, we're standing. We choose to stand. However, to reflect on what we said before, we also bow. And this is part of Shemona Esrei, is that we bow down. That we stand up to say, look, I'm in your service, but we bow down to say, Hashem, we're not even deserving of this. And we recognize your experience as Aleph Daled Nun Yud, as Adon, as master, that I'm yours. I'm just yours. And I don't even belong to be here. And therefore we bow our heads. So we're doing a standing, which is to separate ourselves from beasts, but we also bow with humility and with humbleness. So now that we said this, we can kind of wrap it up a little bit together. At this idea of Amida is when we're standing and we're davening a Shemona Esrei. I'll give you an example of what this might look like. You come to Shemona Esrei, and maybe you're not thinking about the kavanot of, of the words so much. Maybe you're not involved in like screaming and feeling your chisaron, like we spoke about last week. Maybe you come in front of Hashem and you say, Hashem, I'm going to be like a kohen in the Bais HaMikdash. The same way the kohen would take the animal, he would slaughter it, he would skin it, he would cut the pieces, and he would bring each part and act in a way where he's just of service. And he's doing these rituals of service, of worshiping. That's what we can also have a Shemona Esrei look like. That we stand up and we say, Hashem, I'm now going to do this, and I'm offering it to you like a carbon. And I'm going to stand straight, and I'm going to honor you. But it's not necessarily that I'm coming from a place of like, it's me and I'm suffering and I need, to be close to you, or I need refuah or Yeshua. That's a different form of prayer. This form of prayer is just offering it up. And you stand with an awe, with a fear, like a servant in front of his master, recognizing the Adon that Hashem is. And we stand in front of him and we offer it as a service. And that's why even before you've even prayed, right? That was that mabit that we mentioned, that even if you don't daven, even if you don't say a word come out of your mouth, but you just stand in your makam kavua, you stand in this space where I'm standing in front of God with the preparations that I make within myself, aligning my heart and thinking, wow, I'm standing in front of the creator of the world. I'm standing in front of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. I'm standing in front of how he, that he is my Aleph Daled Nun, he is my master. That already is enough to bring Yeshua down to the world. Even if you, mamish, haven't said a word.
What is Mabit again?
I'm sorry?
What is Mabit again?
The Mabit was this Sefer, this Rishon. And yeah, we mentioned from him the idea that just standing, right? That it says by Avram Avinu that when it talks about his Amida form of prayer, it doesn't even mention the fact that he said any words. It just says he got up in the morning and he went back to the place that he stood before. So it shows that type of prayer. And that's also, by the way, why in the morning we don't eat or anything before Shacharis. Is the first thing we do when we wake up in the morning is we come and we offer it to Hashem. Before I give anything to myself, before I eat my own, my own food, before I drink, before I go hang out with my friends, before I take care of my business, the first thing is Shacharis. It's an offering of entering into the Bais HaMikdash. The Tamid Shel Shacharis. This is Amida. And by the way, I actually practice this form of davening sometimes when I'm just out of it. Right? For example, sometimes I'm let's say in the middle of work, and it comes to mincha, or maybe a chakras or whatever it is. You come to a davening, and you maybe I'm just like I don't feel ready to like I don't feel connected to my chesronot. I don't feel connected to like, oh my God, and I'm so tuned into it. And so I'll come and I'm just like wiped out. Maybe it's like a marav, you're late at night and I'm like, I don't have the strength to really get into it. And I'll say, something, I'm going to offer this as a carbon to Hashem. And I'm going to stand in front of him and I'm just going to say the words and I'm going to kind of give them to him. Just like, here, I'm giving them to you like I would be giving an animal without intensive, kavana, with the simple kavana of I'm standing in front of you. Da, and by the way, this is the core of all kavanot. Many people get very involved in the words that they're saying, but it's just a simple thing. Da lifnei mi ata omed. Be aware in front of whom are you standing. Not that da lifnei mi ata yoshev. Dafka, it's dafka lifnei mi ata omed. Who are you standing in front of? Lifnei melech malchei amlachem hakadosh baruch hu. That is it. You have that kavana during Shemona Esrei, you're set, and then you offer it. You take a rifa'enu. It's as if you're picking up the pieces of the innards of the animal, and you're offering it to Hashem. And you say slach lanu, and you're peeling the skin. Whatever it is, you're just offering it. And it's a beautiful form of prayer. It opens up a whole different form of experience. Any other thoughts or questions before we move on? All right. So we're going to move straight along. This is Amida. Now, I chose Amida and the type of prayer called Pegiah as a kind of, we're going to kind of contrast them because they're actually very different. Although maybe they're not so different after all. We'll see. Could be at the end we'll mamish tie them both together, but let's begin to explore this type of prayer called Pegiah. So what is Pegiah? So the pasuk that the core midrashim bring down about the idea of Pegiah says Pegiah is a form of prayer, and it says that Hashem is telling the Navi. It's actually a very intense pasuk, but he says Va'ata al tispalel ba'ada amazeh. I don't want you to daven for them. Va'altisa ba'adam rina utfila, and don't raise up from them, like in honor of them, or like as a schus for them, rina and tefillah. What is rina and tefillah? So obviously we spoke about tefillah. However, over here, rina and tefillah include two larger aspects of prayer. Rina refers to the type of prayer where we're praising God, and tefillah is prayer asking for needs. So it includes lots of different types of prayers over here. And it's important to recognize that sometimes these different words, even though we gave a specific definition for what tefillah might look like, is sometimes in the psukim, there might be in different context, it will hold slightly different meanings. And that's what we're saying over here. Rina refers to all the types of song, of praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Tefillah refers to all the types of prayer that is coming from asking for needs. And then Hashem also says, don't raise these two types of prayer. V'al tifka. Don't implore me or beseech me. Ki eineni shomea esach. I'm not listening to you right now, Hashem says. I am not open to receiving what you have to say, so don't do this. Now, what is this Ba'al Tifgabi? Okay, what is this prayer that's called Pegiah? So, from this pasuk, we see that the idea of Pegiah is one of imploring or beseeching. That you have Rina and Tefillah is don't daven for them, don't say beautiful praises and songs to me, and don't tell me about their needs, and don't implore and beseech me. Don't push me. I don't want to have this type of moment. Let's see a little bit of the Rishonim. So we have over here the Malbim and the Metzudas Tzion. So the Malbim explains this. What's this Al Tifgabi? So he says Geder HaPegiah, understanding what Pegiah is, the the context, it's not the context of Pegiah, but the realm of Pegiah, im yispalal ba'ad atzmai. So what does Pegiah look like for somebody who's davening for himself? Mora shemar betfila ad shelo yuchal lahashiv panav. It's lahashiv panav rekam mipnei riboy bakashasai. It speaks to a type of prayer that when you're so in the guy's face that he simply can't just say no. It's like your mamish all up in somebody's grill. And it's like it's intense. It's a very intense. It's a very face-to-face type of prayer, let us say, right? It's very personal, and sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes but it's very intimate. There's an intimacy there. There's a fact that like I'm getting in your face, and you can't say no to me. If somebody's davening for his friend in this type of prayer called Pegiah, what does it look like? It's that you're davening for this person and you're kind of like generating a merit for the guy, even though the guy really doesn't deserve it. Meaning you're kind of like sticking him into Hashem's face, so to speak, even though he's really not deserving of being in that place. Interesting, right? This is an interesting definition. It's right. We spoke about last week about other types of like beseeching, like screaming and howling, and just even just like just letting all your bodily sounds out. But over here we're talking about it's like getting in front of Hashem, right? Sometimes screaming could be from like an experience of being far away. Here there's an aspect of closeness. So the Metzudas Tzion, this is the bottom of Farish that we put over here, says Tifka. What does this lashon of Tifka be? Inyan bakasha. He says it's a type of asking, beseeching. V'chein upiguli. Right now he throws in an interesting pasuk. Right, this pasuk in Bereshis 23 is the pasuk of Avram Avinu when he wants to bury Sarah, and he comes in front of the Bnei Ches, and he turns to them and he says, "Can you please give me a place to bury my dead?" And they say, they start talking to him, and he says, "Please." He says like this, "Upiguli be'Ephron ben Zeichar." Simply translated, it would be, "Can you introduce me to Ephron ben Zeichar?" But the Metzudas Tzion points out, he says that doesn't just mean introduce me, it means it's like a pleading type of introduction, which is once again interesting, right? We see it's that this type of Pegiah doesn't just speak to an intensive experience, but it speaks to a face-to-face. It speaks to a certain level of intimacy, of me getting in your face. Are we together, guys? Give me a thumbs up. Let's get some thumbs up. All right. Nice. Okay. So over here, I added an extra pasuk. This pasuk over here is another pasuk of Pegiah. And I chose this pasuk, even though like I said, many times there's many pasukim we could choose from. But this pasuk in Rus turns to Naomi, and by Timer Rus, and Rus says, Al tifki bi. He says, don't pester me. So the Malbim, it's a longer piece. I only brought out the middle piece of it for what I wanted to show you. Al tifki ibi. What does it mean when she said, "Hey, stop bothering me"? Right? It's a certain level of being pestered, a face-to-face style pestering. So let's read the Malbim together. Al tifki bi ratzaloimer means to say, ki Pegiah mishamesh al gimel dvarim. There are three types of Pegiah. The first one is hariga. It actually refers to murder, where he brings the pasuk vayifka boy vayamos, right? That I think it was the general of David's army, whatever it is. He says he went out, he was pogea in him, and he died. So we see that there's an aspect, once again, that Pegiah wasn't just that they met or they bumped into each other. It was a slam-a-whammo, right? He knocked him off, right? He bumped him off. So that's the first type of Pegiah. Then you have a second level of Pegiah, which is called Pegisha, right? It's where you meet something else. So if I go to Yerushalayim, it would be a Pegisha with Yerushalayim. Or if you go on a date, it would be like a Pegisha with an other. And he says that is expressed in the pasuk, Avu paga b'yerichai, right? He bumped into Yericho, meaning he came to the place, he met the place, he was traveling, and now he's in Yericho. The last one is tachanunim. It's a pleading, right? And he says that type of pleading is referring to upiguli be'efron, right? That way we mentioned before, also that Metzudas Sion. Now this is interesting, right? Because upiguli be'efron also seemingly was one like upaga b'yericho, but we see that there's a pleading aspect. Upiguli be'efron ben zochar. Don't just introduce me, but in it, like I'm beseeching you that you should go in front of him and really pave the way for me. Meaning, really ask him and get him involved and open him up that he'd want to be involved and help me out. Now, the Malbim adds an interesting thing over here on this pasuk in Rus. He says, "Uladas hamedrash tachanunim upegisha inyanam echad." According to the Medrash, it seems that this aspect of tachanunim, of pleading, and of bumping into the person is really one. It's the same concept. And what is it? Shemivakesh umitzape shechaveroi yetze likrasai. That he is pleading, he's asking, and he's hoping and waiting. Mitzapeh, right? Like tzipita liyeshua, you're waiting for Mashiach. Shechavere, that your friend Yetze lekrasai will come towards you, biratzon levavo lemale bakashaso. And this is really why I brought this down, because this is a very interesting thing. That it's the first time that we're seeing that this idea of Pegiah is not just that I want to bump into you and implore you. It's that I am hoping, I have this pleadingness within me that you should also want to come and spend time with me. That I'm coming towards you, but you should also come towards me. There should be a meeting, a union, that when I come towards you and you come towards me, then we meet in the middle and there's a closeness and we both have a ratzon to get together. Right? Mamish. Beratzon levavo lemale bakashaso, that he should come together, and this is what it means. Upiguli be'Ephron ben Zochar, when Avram was saying, I want Ephron to come meet me. I want him to come and pave the way that he should want to also come and help me as well, and that we should be able to meet each other and be able to accomplish this transaction in a healthy way. Very interesting. We good, guys? Get some thumbs ups. All right. Any questions at this point? All right, we're looking good. Feel free. You can type in. You can mute yourself.
You brought up Pegiah and Pegisha. Was that just because the last Mefarish singular Malbim said that, or was it? Oh no, he didn't. Never mind. I don't know where.
No, he did.
I guess
I
was curious where Pegisha came out.
If you look at the words of the Malbim, look at the words. I'm gonna put my thing right over there, right? See, it says the last three words on that line. Pegisha upaga b'yericho, meaning that there's three types of Pegiah. One of them is called Pegisha, where you're meeting. So it is that 100%. The Malbim expressed that there's these three aspects of Pegiah. So now we hear that Pegiah is this aspect of even the aspect of Misa, right? That it says Vayifka bo, like he like poked him by Yamas and he died. He bumped into him. What does that mean? You bumped into somebody and he died? That's a very intimate experience that you bumped into the guy and he died. Now, obviously, there's a connotation of it of murder, of killing. But that idea of mamish of Pegiah, like when Hashem says al tifka bi, he's saying like stop pestering me, like you're killing me, right? We even say that to people, like when people are pestering you so much, especially a younger brother, you might be like, dude, you're killing me, leave me alone, azovoti, right? Too much. So we see that all these three are really speaking to the same thing. That's obviously why it's the same word, is that it's speaking with these three different connotations, three different elements. Okay. Are we all together here? Because now we're going to take it into the final road. All right? The final, what do we call it? When the horses are coming around, the final stretch.
Home stretch.
The home stretch. Okay, so Pegiah. This is talking, right? This is probably the most classic place that most people know about, because this is in Parshas Vayetze, and it talks about when Yaakov is leaving, he's running away from Esav and he's traveling to Haran, right? And he's going to go, and over there in Haran, he's going to meet his wives, Rachel and Leah. But he's leaving Eretz Yisrael. And the Torah uses a very interesting term. Vayifka ba'makom. He bumped into the place. Vayolen sham. And he slept there. Ki ba hashemesh, because the sun had come down, or had come, right? Interesting. Vayikach me'avnei hamakom. He takes from the stones of the place. Vayas merashosav. He places them around his head. Vayishka v'makom aho. And he sleeps in that day. In that he sleeps, goes to sleep in that place. Now, this is a very interesting pasuk, because this idea of vayifka b'makom, you bumped into the place. What's that talking about? So we'll start off with the Rashi, right? Rashi is wondering, what's this bumping into the place? So he immediately explains it. Now, we already knew this because we bumped into this pasuk before. Vayifka, let's read the Rashi together. Vayifka kamo upaga b'Yericho. Like a person, like he bumped into Yericho, which means he came to the place. Or another place it says, upaga b'dabashas. He came to Dabashas. Rabbi Seinu Pirshu, and Rashi adds, our masters, our Rabbeim, our Chazal teach us, Lashon Tefillah, that this, Vayifka b'makom, was not just talking about that he bumped into the place, but it's talking about a form of prayer. And this is where Chazal tell us that Yaakov Avinu was mataken, the Tefillah of Mariv, of Arvis. And where does this lashon of tefillah come from? So Rashi says, Kimova al tifkabi. Like the pasuk says, don't hound me, don't pester me. And that's a form of prayer, right? We saw that was in the pasuk of Bayirmiyah. V'lamadnu shatikin tefillas arvis. And we learn from here that he was mataken, the davening, the third tefillah called Mariv. Vishina hakasav. Now the Torah could have used vayispal sham, right? Why didn't the Torah use the normal term of tefillah? And so Rashi adds that there's a reason why the Torah didn't want to say tefillah. V'lo kasav vayispal. It didn't use the word vayispal that he davened. Lilamedcha, to teach you a second aspect of what happened here. Lilamedcha, to teach you shekaftza lo haaretz, that the land jumped towards him. He had something called kfitzat haderech, k'moshe mafarish b'parak gid anasha, like it's explained in the parak gid anasha in Maseches Chulin. So let's look at that Gemara in Chulin. Gemara in Chulin 91b, right in the middle of the Gemara. So it says Diksiv. It says in the pasuk, Vayetze Yaakov mi Beersheva. Yaakov left Beersheva. Vayelech Harana, and he went to Haran. Uksiv, and it also says Vayifka b'makom, and he bumped into the place. So the Torah. So now the Gemara is explaining the psukim. Kimata lecharan. When Yaakov got to Haran, Amar, he said, Efsher avarti al makom. Is it possible that I passed by the place she'espalalu avosai, that my father's davened, v'ani lo yespalalti, and I didn't go and daven there? Had yohiv date lemeheder. So Yaakov suddenly he had a moment of awareness, and he put his awareness saying, I want to go back there. Kaptale ara miyad vayifka b'makom. The earth jumped. He had a thought. I would love to be back by the Kotel. How could I leave Israel without davening by the Kotel? Miyad vayifka b'makom. Suddenly he's there. Wow, how did I just get here? So Rashi on the Gemara over there explains, vayifka b'makom. What does it mean, vayifka b'makom? Ke'adam hapogea b'chaveroi sheba. Move this over a little bit. Right, like a person who bumps into his friend, sheba kinegdai. Very interesting and important term, right? It's like a guy who bumps into his friend who's walking towards him. Okay, and he now brings the other pasuk of Rus, not the pasuk of Yirmiyah. Let's open this up now. Now we have a lot to unpack. The story of Yaakov Avinu, the story of Tefillah. Let's bring it all together. What happened? Yaakov travels. Let's now relook at the story, right? Yaakov's traveling, and he travels all the way to Haran. And when he gets to Haran, he suddenly stops. And he goes, what am I doing? How can I leave Eretz Yisrael? How can I leave everybody behind? How can I leave my land behind without davening. I'm all the way here in Haran. And then suddenly he had this experience. Kad Yohiv date lemeheder. At that moment, Kad, when Yohiv, he placed date, his awareness or his consciousness, lemeheder, to return, miyad immediately cuffed Saleya Aretz. The earth ran towards him. And Rashi says, like what? Like a friend running towards him. And this is Pegiah. So let's open this up now. There's two types of prayer, right? There's the prayer when I'm like calling out to Hashem and I'm reaching out to him. But then there's another aspect when suddenly I am standing next, directly opposite Hashem himself. I'm mamish standing with Hashem. I'm standing directly like mamish. I'm here and he's there. There's a type of prayer that I turn to Hashem and I say, Hashem, please send down through the channels, please send down what I need. You know, so you're all the way up there. Send me a little parnasa, send me a little refuah, send me a little Yeshua, send it all down. But then there's the other moment when you literally reach out to Hashem himself. You reach out to have that place of being connected to Hashem himself. You know, when we daven, we don't daven to any intermediaries. Right? When we do a mitzvah, let's say you're doing a mitzvah of putting on your tefillin. Well, let's do a mitzvah of sukkah, right? So you meet sukkah. Hashem says, "Oh, I want you to do this mitzvah." So you choose to do this mitzvah, and you, so to speak, meet the moment that now it's sukkahs. So I'm going to eat and sleep in a sukkah, and I'm going to shake a lulav. When you come to daven, the goal of your davening is that you're reaching out to Hashem as the makor, as the source of everything. He's mamish, like we're talking about. We don't daven to any aspect of any intermediaries, even an intermediary of Hashem himself, like a koach. We're going straight to the source, to the shoresh. We're mamish reaching to the highest part. And you know what we do with our own self also? Is that we reach to the highest part of myself. When I go into a prayer, sometimes when I come to daven, I'm reaching to the highest place of myself. I'm reaching to like the most ideal Yehuda. I want to like this is what Yaakov Avinu's experience was. He goes, where have I ended up? What am I doing here? He put it in his mind. He said, I want to go back home. I want to be connected. I want to return. That's the term. I want to return back to being by the kotel. But look at you. You're all the way in Haran, right? The tzaddikim always teach us Haran is a lashon of charon af. It's an aspect of anger, which is an aspect of messed up midot, bad midot, kilkul amidas. And all of a sudden, if a yid who mamish finds himself so far, we look at ourselves and we go, I'm so disconnected from God. I want to get back. I want to be connected to you, Hashem. And all of a sudden, miyad kaftzala aretz. The land is just going to jump towards you and you're suddenly going to be there. And it says Yaakov Avinu was shocked. Like Yifka b'makom, he suddenly bumped into this place. How did I get here? How in the world did this happen? And this is the side of Pegiah. The side of Pegiah is that if you are just trying to work to get close to God, you could work for 1,000 years and you'll still be infinitely far away. But when you really come, Karav Hashem lechol karav, lechol asher yikru be'emes. When you come authentically, and what that pasuk, Karav Hashem, Hashem is close. Lechol karav, to all who call out to him. Lechol asher yikru be'emes, anybody who calls out authentically. When you really feel it, when you have that experience of like Yaakov Avinu, of kad yohiv date lemeheder, when he put his mind and says, I want to come close. I know myself, right? I sin, I fall, I make all sorts of mistakes. But sometimes you have a moment and you go, Hashem, I just want to be close to you. And all of a sudden, bam, you're there. You're suddenly looking face to face with Hashem. You're saying, Baruch Atah Hashem. The fact that in Shemona Esrei you could say Atah, it's called Lashon Nochach, meaning I'm speaking directly opposite. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you in the face. That's Pegiah. You're looking at God in the face. You're mamish there, right there. How did you get here? I don't even know. But when you have that moment, kadyoev date, when a person puts his awareness and says in an authentic way, Hashem, and this is the crazy thing, because this is even before you call out. Not only is Hashem close to those that call out, there's another pasuk. The pasuk says, Terem yikra'u. Before you even call out, you haven't even yet cried out in davening. Hashem says, Va'ani ene, I have already answered. Meaning, I'm already there for you. Yaakov, it doesn't say that he said any words come from his mouth. It just had kad yohiv date. He just had an awareness of like, why am I in Haran? I want to be by the Kotel. I want to be in Eretz Yisrael. I want to be connected with you, Hashem. I want to be aligned with you. I want to be near you. Boom. Your mamish there already. And it goes even more than this. Mamish even more. The pasuk says, Hashochen itam b'seich tumasam. Hashem dwells within you even while you're still tameh. Sometimes we look at ourselves and we go, how in the world am I going to have an intimate relationship with Hashem? How am I going to get so close to God? He's so far away from me. And I'm so messed up. If you only knew, I know. I feel so rotten. I feel so broken. I feel so like there's no way that Hashem would ever want to have a relationship with me. And Hashem says, no. Hashochen itam b'soich tumasam. The one, Hashem, who dwells within you even when you're still tameh. You might think, oh, if I get tahar, oh, if I become a tzaddik, oh, if I become the best self that I could possibly be, then Hashem will have a relationship with me. No. Even right now, within your tameh, within your messed upness, within the avera, we're still sitting here and we're mamish tameh still. We haven't even gone to mikveh yet. And Hashem says, I'm there with you. Before you even call out, as long as you have an authentic cry of saying, Hashem, I want to be close to you. We look at life, and many times people look at davening this way. They say, wow, in davening, like, I thank God I have davening so I can overcome my obstacles. And you go, bro, you have those obstacles that are just there to open you up to a place that you should have a moment of really wanting to be close to God, of really saying, what am I doing here? I don't want to be here. I don't belong here in Haran. I don't belong here in anger, in messed up midot. I want to be there. And gevalt, and Hashem just goes, Hadyoev date. You mamish, you tuned in, you hop shot, you see what's going on, you see what the deal is, you see what mamish, why we're here. This is mamish the holiest. This is mamish the holiest. And this is Pegiah. Now let's go back to what this whole story of Pegiah, of Al Tifka be. When Hashem turns to Yirmiyah Navi and he says, don't get involved with me. Leave me alone. Keep some distance. Because Hashem saying, that is who I am. Is that if you do cry out to me with openness, with honesty, with authenticity, then you know I'm going to be there. You know, not only are you going to bump into me, but I'm going to meet you halfway. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to dig a hole. You might be digging a hole and trying to get to God, but God is mamish digging a hole back to you. The same way that we're trying to peel off the layers that are holding us back, God from his side is peeling those layers. But it comes from a place of kadyoev date. It comes from a place where we have to be authentic. Karav Hashem l'chol karav v'chol asher yikru be'emes. You got to call out with authenticity. You got to call out with emes. You got to call out with truth. And Hashem's here. And this is mamish how we're going to get to Mashiach. Because all the tzaddikim, they said, what? We're so far. How are we going to bridge the gap? Even now, you talk to people and they go, we can't be that close because look how messed up everything is. Chevra, all it takes is a kad yohiv date. All it takes is putting your awareness there. And suddenly you're going to be there. Vayifka b'makom, your mamish going to be in the place. Your mamish going to get to the place. And this is mamish, that space. Remember we said that place, Asher Omad Sham, that place that Avram Avinu was standing. And we said that was an aspect of Amida, right? That there's an aspect of Amida that he was going to stand in the same place that he was. This is like a little crazy topping for this Torah. And I don't know if this is real or not, but it's mamish crazy. There's a pasuk, right? The pasuk says, after right in that parsha with Avram and Sodom, and the angels came, and Avram says to God, he says, please, can you do me a favor? I want to go do this mitzvah because I connect to you so deeply by bringing these guests. And Hashem says, no problem. The Torah says that after the angels left, it says Avram, what's the pasuk? But Avram oidenu oimed lefnei Hashem, and Avram was still yet standing in front of God. And the Mefarshim all say, what are you talking about? He's still standing there. He wasn't still standing there. He went away. God was the one who was standing and waiting for Avram to come back. And the Medrash Rabbah says, in truth, that's what happened. But the Torah didn't want to speak that way because it's so disrespectful to say that God was standing around waiting. However, I want you to hear what this means. When we sometimes come and we're standing in front of God and we go, oh, Denu Oimid, like, wow, we're waiting. You know, sometimes you're waiting to meet with somebody and you have to stand and wait for your appointment. You're standing in line. However, God is waiting for us. He's standing, Adenu Oimid. The Torah just doesn't want to say it to the public because it's such a wild thing. But that's the truth. The Torah says Avram was still yet standing and waiting, but it wasn't really talking about Avram. It was talking about God. Now think about it right now. Hashem, that was the aspect of Amida, but this is also mamish Pegiah. Pegiah is that Hashem is waiting to have that intimate experience. He's waiting to have that type of davening that you literally go up to Shemayim, you vayifka b'makom. There's two ways of saying makom, right? Makom could either mean place, or ha-makom is another name for God. Sometimes you have that experience that you just are mamish there. You don't even know how you got there. Sometimes it happens. I remember it used to happen that, you know, you go and you get into Friday night davenings and you get lichtig, but sometimes it wears off and you're not like getting so lit up by those Friday night davenings. And maybe it's because you're expecting it. Maybe it's because you kind of like know, oh, I know where I'm going. And then you don't get there. If you go to shul expecting a high experience, many times it doesn't happen. It requires letting go and just having kadyoev date, saying, I want to get there. I want to be close. I'm putting my awareness, Hashem, I want to be close, but I don't know when I'm going to get there because the truth is, I'm so far from you, God. However, when you do that and you let go, boom, vayifka b'makom. We don't even know when it's going to happen. And you have that intimate experience, and suddenly there you are having the davening of your life. You go to the kotel and you're like, okay, I'm not really so. You go and you're just like, yes, I'm just gonna say davening the best that I can. I'm not trying to make it. I'm not in the mood, and you just give it with simplicity and honesty and authenticity. And suddenly, vayifka b'makom, your mamish will have the most crazy intimate place. And this doesn't happen all the time. And the truth is, we can't plan it. We mamish can't plan it. You can't plan to have this type of experience. It's a gift because it comes from both sides. And now we can mamish go back. Remember that Malbim, the Malbim said that really it's two halves. It's that when a person has a real desire, that the other should come towards him as well. When we come to Hashem, we say, Hashem, I'm infinitely far from you. But gevalt, I'm also infinitely close. I'm infinitely far from you, but you said, Karav Hashem, to all those that call out, that you're close to all those who call out to you in honesty. You're the one that said that you're willing to be with me even when I'm still dirty, even when I'm still tameh, even when I'm still impure. You said that you're going to be there with me. And I can't force you to do it. but I can really want it. And I can really put my awareness there. As on Hashem, we'll have those moments, man. Mamish will. Hashem's there for us. And that's Pegiah, L'chaim. Evra, thoughts, questions? We're open.
So first off, thank you as always. I had a couple questions. So is the phrase "kedeyahiv date"?
Yes. I'll even go back. We can go back to the slide where we could see it. Here we go.
Great.
Myself small. It's kad, which means when. I'll put my you see my face on the screen, right? So right underneath me.
Yeah.
Oop, right over here. See that?
Mm.
Kad yohiv date. Lemeheder. So kad means when. Yohiv, he placed. Date, his awareness. Lemeheder, to return. And that's us, man. When you put your awareness and just say, I want to be there. Even though I know, right? Yaakov knew. He said, there's no way that I could be there because I'm not there. I'm here. But gevalt, immediately, suddenly, vayifka b'makom.
And who says that?
One more time.
What's the mafarish?
Oh,
Who says that? What?
That's a
Who are you
Gemara.
hovering above? Gotcha.
That's a Gemara. The Gemara in Chulin 91b is the one that explains that story. That kad yohev dati lemeheder. And Rashi expounds on that, and he says that the Pegiah that then happened, the meeting that then came up was as if not that Yaakov just was dragged to there, but the land came towards him. There's actually an interesting, the Mefarshim actually asked the question. They say, Eliezer also had kfitzat haderech, where the ground went fast, right? He traveled from Avram Avinu all the way to Haran, also in one day. So what was the difference between Yaakov's experience and Eliezer's experience? And the Chassam Sofer, I believe, is the one who says it. He says that Eliezer was, so to speak, getting thrown from Eretz Yisrael all the way to Haran. Yaakov Avinu, Eretz Yisrael ran towards him.
That's amazing.
It's a different experience, but it's wild. It's fun. And when you think about it that way, because that's this meeting, it wasn't that Yaakov Avinu went to, was dragged. He did. He was taken also to there, but also the land actually came towards him. And it was this meeting. It was a two-sided thing. And that's why Pegiah very much speaks to this face-to-face experience, this two-sided experience where we come face-to-face with God. And so to speak, we look at Hashem and we're looking at the source of all sources. And Mamish, the Shirish, the Makor. And Hashem looks at us and he Mamish sees our highest state of being, our highest state of existence. He looks at us and he goes, you think you're so messed up because you're tameh? When you're real and you're authentic and you put your little bit of awareness that you're able to put into it, gevalt, you're the highest of the high. I want to be with you there. And Hashem Mamish comes and we have this intimate experience, this intimate shared experience.
Wow. Is this where the idea of the Hasidim get where you put your mind at? That's where you are?
Yeah, it's the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov says that wherever you put your, could be. That's beautiful. I didn't make that connection today. So that's mamish gorgeous. That kad yohev dati, that when you put your thoughts there, you mamish are there, because that's beautiful. I love it. I'm going to add it in. Put that in my notes.
Repeating the beautiful Torahs I've heard. Scott, do you have any questions? I don't want to keep taking the floor. Okay. I got one more idea for a question, really. It's when you talked about the land ran towards him like a friend. Who said that? Or
Rashi.
which Rashi said that?
Yeah, so let's see. Let's look at the Rashi together. Right.
That was also really beautiful.
Right. So here, vayifka b'makom. It's not the Rashi on Chumash. This is a Rashi on the Gemara. Vayifka b'makom ke'adam. So Rashi says ke'adam hapogea b'chaveroi. Like a man who bumps into his friend, sheba kinegdo, that he's coming opposite him. That means not just that I'm going this way, but my friend is also walking this way. Right? We're both walking towards each other and we bump into each other. That's also right. Like imagine if you turn, I remember as a kid, I would tell my friend, okay, we're gonna meet, let's say Shabbos afternoon, or even not on Shabbos, right? It was before cell phones. I would be like, okay, we're gonna meet here, so we'll walk and meet in the middle. Once you get off the phone, you don't know when you're gonna meet the person, but I know I'm going towards my friend, and my friend's coming towards me, and suddenly, boom, oh, there you are, and you mamish meet in the middle. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
This is great.
New meaning. Should we end off with a little story, or we got to go?
Great. Yeah. I just wanted to say also, I like how you put Pegiah and Amidah next to each other. I'm sure that was intentional.
Yeah, it's because there's a contrasting of them, but like there's also a beautiful interplay. They're very different experiences, right? Sometimes it could be that an Amida experience will become a Pegiah experience as well, but could be not. Like sometimes for me, an Amida experience sometimes is very like when I don't have the strength to really like go crazy in davening. So I just like I'm simply bringing a carbon because you want me to do it, and that's what my chakras or my mincha. I'm not thinking about it so much because my brain's not here right now. I'm just being real with whatever I can give. And Pegiah is, he is much more intimate in many ways, right? Standing in front of someone in awe and fear is not very intimate. It's very respectful, and it's giving a certain level of you're appreciating the greatness and the awe of of the one that you're standing in front of, but it's not a moment of intimacy, so to speak. It could be though. It could become very intimate, but it's not generally. But then it can transform. Any other questions? Maybe we'll share a little story.
Please do. Unless someone else
Scott,
has questions.
good? Okay. So once there was a guy, and he was traveling to this distant city. He's traveling on foot, and he bumps into his friend, and his friend gives him a backpack, and he says, "Can I ask you to please carry this for me? I need you to carry it all the way to the city. Mamish, it's for you, but I need you to carry it." And the guy says, "Okay." And he's carrying it, and you can imagine he's walking through forests and hills, and this backpack is so heavy. It's crazy how heavy it is. And it's hard. Finally, he's coming and he's walking, and he's like, so he's like, "I got what's in this backpack." He opens it up, and it's just a bunch of rocks, these big rocks, and they're there. And like, he's like, "This is crazy. I can't carry them. My friend's not going to notice if I take out one rock." Picks a rock, chucks it on the side. He continues walking, and he's walking along the beach, on the way to his homeland, the city where he's going. And he's like, every once in a while, he's just like, it just gets too much. And he picks up one of the rocks out from the back and just chucks it. And he's walking, and he just chucks it into the shallow waters of the sea. And suddenly he sees something sparkle. So he takes a few steps back, and he walks over, and he sees the rock that he threw in, and there was a glint on it. And so he puts his hands in the water, and as he touches the rock, it like washes off. And suddenly he sees it's these gorgeous, gorgeous, precious stones. Everyone, and he starts taking them out of his backpack, and he washes them off. He goes, "Wow, these are amazing." However, this is mamish tefillah. Sometimes davening feels like this heavy backpack, and you're just schlepping it, and you go, "Why am I schlepping this backpack? I'm just gonna, what's the big deal if I just miss a mincha?" And you chuck it. "Oh, okay, just miss a chakras, chuck it. Just miss a marav." And then suddenly at some point you look at them and you go, "Oh my God, this is the most amazing experience. These are precious stones. I want to experience each and every one, and they're all so different from each other. If I chuck one, who knows what that experience was?" Some people, it takes open like on another level everything that we were talking about before. Sometimes I even mentioned this to you guys, I think. what's a ladder for, right? Some people think that a ladder is to go up, right? I can get up to the high places, to the upstairs of my house. Sometimes you have a ladder and you say, oh, it means that now I can go down. But a ladder is so much more than just something that gets you up or gets you down. A ladder connects ups and downs. Stop for a second. A ladder connects, it makes oneness out of all of your ups and downs. Sometimes people think, oh, when I daven, either it's to bring down because I need the stuff that I need, or it's that I want to get so high. Gevalt chevra, a ladder, tefillah, is about sharing an intimate experience with God. It is the fact that a ladder makes oneness. It brings us together. That is what tefillah is. Tefillah is not just about bringing the shefa down or throwing our prayers up. It's about meeting. It's about Pegiah. It's about becoming one. And we can go crazy with this, but that was Yaakov's whole dream, man. But Makom, and he had a dream about a ladder that connected heaven and earth because it was all about that. And some people think the ladder was about going up to heaven in Yaakov's dream. And some people think it was about the angels that were coming down. And Yaakov was like, no, it's about making one. It's about meeting and having intimacy and sharing and being together and knowing that no matter where I go, Hashem's going to be with me. And that was what Hashem said. In all your journeys that you go, I'm going to be present with you because you're going to be on a ladder. Sometimes you'll be higher on the ladder. Sometimes you'll be lower on the ladder. But be on the ladder because the ladder is the meeting place. The ladder makes oneness. So let's really try to appreciate these diamonds and these gems, and don't try to make a sapphire into a ruby, and don't try to expect a ruby to be an emerald. When we come to daven, let's be open. Let's meet the moment. Let's bump into the moment. Let's meet it for whatever it's meant to be, and put our awareness in it, and then just be open and say, Hashem, I'm here. I'm calling out to you in honesty and truthfulness. L'chaim. Gevalt, gevalt. All right.